Adequate progesterone levels are needed for a healthy menstrual cycle, for fertility, and to maintain a pregnancy. Low progesterone levels are common in PCOS. In this video, I want to share with you some tips on how to boost progesterone levels. Progesterone is a female hormone. It is predominantly produced by the corpus luteum, but in smaller quantities by the adrenal glands. Now, before we get into how to boost progesterone levels, let's cover why it's important that we are producing progesterone, that progesterone levels are at an adequate amount. One of the most important ones is to help prevent estrogen dominance. So as you may know, estrogen and progesterone work together. They balance each other out. So when when we're not producing enough progesterone because of various reasons, and estrogen levels are constantly increasing, they're not being they're left unopposed by progesterone. To find out more about high estrogen levels, estrogen dominance, how to go about lowering estrogen, which I highly recommend, click the card here to check out that video. Another huge important one is the fact that progesterone is needed for optimal thyroid function. So here's the thing, progesterone is pro-thyroid. It promotes the secretion of thyroid hormones from the thyroid gland. As I discussed in that estrogen video, when estrogen is high, it suppresses the thyroid gland, inhibiting the release of thyroid hormones. So because progesterone is pro-thyroid, it can help the release of the thyroid hormones and support the thyroid. Because low progesterone and high estrogen can cause hyperthyroidism. This is where the thyroid is underactive. It means it's not producing enough of the thyroid hormones, and in turn causing a lot of the symptoms like fatigue, weight gain, cold hands and feet, low pulse rate, low resting heart rate, low body temperature, hair loss, dry skin, brittle nails, thinning of the eyebrows, tons of different symptoms which, slow metabolism, regular menstrual cycle, and all of these things tend to come because your thyroid is shutting down. Another huge benefit and why progesterone is so important when it comes to PCOS as well is that progesterone has anti-androgenic effects. See, as I previously mentioned in one of my videos, when estrogen is high, it irritates the adrenals, causing it to pump out DHEA. And often these high male hormones that we get, research shows that they have kind of progesterone, similar to progesterone benefits, the effects of progesterone. So, these male hormones can rise to protect the body against the high estrogen levels. But obviously, progesterone is more, when progesterone levels are high, we don't have to experience those male-like symptoms associated with PCOS, like hair loss, like hair growth, male pattern baldness, and acne. A fourth benefit is that the thymus gland, which is the key organ of our immune system, is also profoundly dependent on progesterone. So research shows that since progesterone normalizes the immune system, causing thymus regeneration, it is very effective in autoimmune diseases and in those degenerative diseases which have an autoimmune component. Also, in experiments, progesterone was found to be the basic hormone of adaptation and of resistance to stress. See, the adrenal glands use, as you may have come across, that it steals or uses progesterone to create cortisol. But when we have enough progesterone, then the adrenal glands don't have to, steal the progesterone to make the potentially harmful cortisol. So before I touch on some of the ways that you can boost progesterone levels, let me quickly identify some of the causes of progesterone deficiency, just so you know, the root causes of low progesterone levels. So there are different reasons for not producing adequate amounts of progesterone. This can include poor nutrition, physical and emotional stressors. Within these kind of physical, it could be over-exercising, climate, can be taking estrogen, synthetic estrogens from birth control pills, the IUD. There's just a lot of different reasons, and they all pretty much come down this umbrella of stress on the body. So it's important to identify where your stressor is coming from within your diet or your lifestyle and work on addressing them. So how do we go about boosting our progesterone levels? Well, Dr. Katarina Dalton, who was the pioneer in premenstrual syndrome research and treatment, provides the following explanations for how progesterone can be increased in her book. She states, progesterone receptors cannot transport or bind to a molecule of progesterone if there has been a drop in blood sugar. Second explanation is, progesterone receptors do not transport progesterone molecules into the nucleus of cells if adrenaline is present. So Dr. Katarina Dalton makes very clear in her book that in order to restore progesterone levels, the treatment plan must address diet and nutrition as, I guess, the key part of increasing progesterone levels. So two things that you must focus on, and the two things that kind of interrelated, is one, cells must not be deprived from or run out of sugar. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, sugar, can't be eating sugar, sugar's bad. No, check out my video on should you avoid carbs if you have PCOS, and the answer is no, but just check that video out just to find out why sugar, carbs are so important for our hormones, for our body. Second is adrenaline must be kept as low as possible and preventing those spikes. So here's the thing, when our cells are deprived of sugar or just low in sugar, glucose, this is a stressful situation. The body sees this as a stress, and this leads to an adrenaline response. So adrenaline levels will rise. As adrenaline breaks down fat cells, it also releases free fatty acids into the blood. And when the blood is flooded with free fatty acids, this actually in turn blocks the cell's ability to metabolize glucose. So based on these metabolic considerations and on the explanations provided, Dr. Katarina Dalton created a treatment plan and recommendations to help boost progesterone levels. And she called it the 3-hourly starch diet. The diet has the following characteristics. 1, frequent carb snacking. She states in the book, divide the day's starchy food so that you eat small starchy snacks every 3 hours during the waking hours and within 1 hour of waking and retiring to bed. Just a quick note that Dr. Katarina Dalton, is fine with carbs is fine with grains as a carb source. The second is minimizing overnight fast. I talk a lot about this kind of intermittent fasting and going too long without eating. She states, ideally the overnight fast should not exceed 10 hours. Before you go to bed, you have a bedtime snack, and within 30 minutes of waking up, you have breakfast. Third point is a healthy diet with adequate protein and plenty of fruits and vegetables. She states that this is an ongoing practice, so you must continue this diet throughout the menstrual cycle. And she states it takes at least 7 days before the benefit of frequent eating is appreciated, and unfortunately, if there are long gaps between eating and snacking, it will take up to 7 days to recover. She really suggests focusing a lot on the diet before supplementing with any kind of progesterone. So here are some further tips. Number 1 is support your thyroid. Make sure your thyroid is fully functioning, because as I've spoken about many times in my videos, is we need a fully functioning thyroid to be creating steroidal hormones like progesterone. So we need a healthy functioning thyroid along with adequate amounts of light, vitamin A, vitamin E and copper to be creating these hormones. So to support the thyroid, as Dr. Katerina Dalton's recommendation suggested, make sure you're eating every 3 to 4 hours, avoid fasting, and make sure you are getting adequate amounts of calories. Second tip is to, obviously, big one, is to manage stress. So as I previously mentioned in the video, cortisol is synthesized by progesterone and released by the adrenal glands. So when we are in a constant state of stress, chronic stress, the body is kind of prioritizing or stealing progesterone to make cortisol, and this is obviously not very supportive to maintaining healthy progesterone levels. The third tip is to eat fat / cholesterol. See, here's the thing. When people say eat fat for your hormones, what they mean is you need cholesterol. Like I said, cholesterol is the building block of all steroidal hormones. But, cholesterol is largely found in fatty animal foods. So to help get cholesterol, you're going to have some fat. So that's why it's important to be making sure that you get adequate amounts of cholesterol. Eating cholesterol-rich foods, for example, your eggs, your liver. The fourth tip is to make sure you're eating adequate amount of protein. I mentioned this in my estrogen video, but as Dr. Ray P explains, adequate protein in the diet and good thyroid function helps the body produce its own progesterone. Even if the ovaries have been removed, the adrenal glands and brain continue to produce progesterone. So the recommended amount of protein that you should be consuming for a healthy functioning thyroid and to help with the production of progesterone is between 70 to 100 grams per day. Now this protein source of protein I recommend is to be anti-inflammatory amino acids. This is important for the liver as well to help with detoxification of estrogen. Fifth tip is to make sure you're getting adequate amounts of zinc, as this helps with the creation of thyroid hormones. Foods high in B6. Vitamin B6 is essential for the production of the corpus luteum and therefore important for creating progesterone. But it's also needed by the liver when metabolizing estrogen. The liver needs vitamin B6 to help detoxify those estrogens to avoid recirculation into the body, as well as drinking coffee or caffeine. I also have a video as well on whether you should avoid caffeine for PCOS. Click the card here to watch that video. I recommend it. Caffeine synergizes with progesterone, increasing its concentration in the blood and tissues. The final tip on how to boost progesterone levels is identical progesterone. And the one I particularly use and recommend is Repeat Progest-E Complex. Progest-E uses a natural progesterone that is the same as the molecule made by the body. So the reason why I really like Progest-E Complex from Repeat is because it is dissolved in vitamin E. So it's used as a carrier. So when dissolved in vitamin E, progesterone begins entering the bloodstream as soon as it contacts any membrane. So when you can put it on your lips or gums. And when it's swallowed, it continues to be absorbed as part of the digestive process. So the absorption rate is definitely better. And another reason for using Progest-E and the fact that it's dissolved in vitamin E is that vitamin E is anti-estrogenic. Before using a progesterone, bioidentical progesterone, it's advised to consult a medical professional to help you with the dosage. But the first thing to make sure is that your diet and nutrition is addressed. Because if you have chronic stress, high levels of cortisol, adrenaline spiking, then you're probably not going to be getting that progesterone into the cell you're not going to get the benefits because obviously, like we keep saying, when stress is high, we're using cortisol is made from progesterone. Also, if you are using progesterone cream, obviously if you have high levels of estrogen, Estrogen can be inside the fat cells, and when you use these progesterone creams, it can end up mobilizing the estrogen. You might end up thinking that progesterone has caused, caused you all these symptoms, like an adverse reaction, but in reality it's just the estrogen that has been released, is in the blood, and it's just causing all these estrogen dominant kind of symptoms. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope it was helpful. I hope you found some value. If you enjoyed it and you found some value, please give it a like. I'll catch you in the next one.